Marcus Chun had always thought alien abduction stories were complete nonsense, right up until the moment he found himself standing in what could only be described as a throne room that belonged in a fever dream. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, disappearing into darkness that seemed to move and breathe. And, sitting before him, on a throne carved from what appeared to be crystallized starlight, was the most terrifying and beautiful creature he had ever seen. She was tall, easily 8 feet, with skin that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue depending on how the light hit it. Her face was angular, almost feline, with large eyes that held the depth of galaxies. Her arms extended from her torso, each ending in delicate hands with too many fingers. When she spoke, her voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. Human Marcus Chun, designation Earth, Soul 3, you have been summoned before the eternal throne of the Zephyrian Empire. Marcus tried to speak, but found his throat completely dry. He managed a squeaky what? The alien queen leaned forward, and Marcus caught a glimpse of something that made his human brain struggle to process what he was seeing. Behind her, partially hidden by the throne, were what appeared to be weapons of unimaginable destruction, devices that seemed to bend reality around them. I am Queen Vexalia of the Zephyrian Empire. We have observed your species for 3 of your Earth cycles. You, specifically, have been chosen for a task of utmost importance. Me? Marcus laughed nervously. Lady, I think you got the wrong guy. I'm a software engineer from Cleveland. I can barely keep my houseplants alive. The Queen's expression didn't change. You were selected from a population of 8 billion humans after extensive analysis. Your psychological profile, your problem-solving capabilities, your unique perspective on conflict resolution. Marcus remembered the incident she was probably referring to. 6 months ago, he had talked down an armed robbery at his local convenience store. Not through any heroic action, but by genuinely listening to the desperate man's problems and helping him find a better solution. It had made the local news for about a day. The Zephyrian Empire spans 14 galaxies, the Queen continued. We have conquered countless worlds, absorbed numerous species into our collective. We are masters of war, technology, and expansion. She paused, and for the first time, Marcus detected something in her voice that sounded almost like vulnerability. Yet we face a problem that our vast armies cannot solve. A challenge that our most advanced technologies cannot overcome. A crisis that threatens not just our empire, but the very fabric of existence itself. The chamber fell silent except for the subtle humming of alien technology. Marcus found his voice again. What kind of problem? Queen Vexalia stood, her 4 arms gesturing to holographic displays that suddenly materialized around them. Marcus saw star maps, battle formations, and what appeared to be some kind of spreading darkness consuming entire solar systems. The Void Devourers, she said, her voice heavy with something that might have been fear. Ancient entities from the space between spaces. They consume reality itself, leaving nothing but emptiness in their wake. They cannot be fought with conventional weapons. They cannot be negotiated with. They simply unmake everything they touch. Marcus stared at the displays, watching entire civilizations wink out of existence. That's horrible, but I still don't understand what you want from me. Our greatest tactical minds have failed. Our most powerful weapons are useless. Our diplomatic corps cannot even establish contact. The Queen turned to face him directly. But humans have something we do not, which is hope. The word hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Hope, he repeated. Every species we have encountered follows logical patterns. When faced with insurmountable odds, they calculate, they strategize, they eventually accept defeat. But humans, the Queen's large eyes seemed to study him with intense curiosity. Humans have a tendency to find solutions where none should exist, to create possibilities out of impossibility. Your species calls it thinking outside the box, but to us it appears to be something far more profound. Marcus thought about human history, about how many times a species had faced extinction and somehow pulled through. The plague, world wars, natural disasters, technological catastrophes. Somehow, humans always seem to find a way. You're asking me to help you fight these void devourer things? I am asking you to do what no Zephyrian has been able to do. Find a solution that does not involve direct confrontation or conventional strategy. Marcus looked around the throne room again, taking in the alien architecture and impossible technology. And if I say no, then the universe ends, the Queen said simply. The Void Devourers will continue their consumption until nothing remains. Not Earth, not the Zephyrian Empire, not any of the billions of civilizations scattered across the cosmos. The weight of that statement settled on Marcus like a physical burden. He thought about his apartment back in Cleveland, his job debugging code, his quiet life of routine and predictability. All of that seemed incredibly small and distant now. How long do we have? He asked. Based on their current rate of expansion, approximately 57 Earth days before they reach inhabited systems. Less than 200 days before they reach Earth. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to process everything he'd been told. When he opened them again, the Queen was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I don't know anything about fighting cosmic entities, he said finally. Knowledge can be provided. What cannot be taught is the human capacity for, how do you say it, pulling victory from the jaws of defeat. Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling slightly. You've been studying us pretty closely, haven't you? Your species is endlessly fascinating. Take your own situation, for instance. You have been transported across the galaxy, told that existence itself is under threat, and asked to save the universe. Most beings would be paralyzed by terror or overwhelmed by the impossibility of the task. And what am I doing instead? You are asking practical questions and considering whether to help. The Queen's expression might have been admiration. This is precisely why you were chosen. Marcus looked at the star maps again, seeing the inexorable advance of the darkness that consumed everything in its path. He thought about every person he had ever known, every place he had ever been, every story, song, and dream that would be lost if the Void Devourer succeeded. If I agree to help, he said, I'm going to need some things. Name them. First, I need to understand everything you know about these entities. Not just tactical data, but everything. How they move, what they consume first, whether there are any patterns to their behavior. The Queen nodded. This can be arranged. Second, I need access to your best scientists, engineers, and strategic minds. I work better when I can bounce ideas off other people. Granted. And third, Marcus hesitated, then decided to go for it. I need you to be prepared for solutions that might seem completely insane by your standards. For the first time since his arrival, Queen Vexalia smiled. It was a terrifying and wonderful expression on her alien features. Human Marcus Chun, she said, insanity may be precisely what the universe needs. The next morning, if morning had any meaning aboard a massive alien spacecraft traveling between stars, Marcus found himself in what the Zephyrians call the Knowledge Synthesis Chamber. It was essentially the universe's most advanced library, classroom, and research facility rolled into one impossible space. Dr. Kethvar, the Empire's leading expert on the Void Devourers, stood before a three-dimensional holographic display that showed the progression of the entities across known space. The Zephyrian scientist had 6 arms and skin that looked like polished obsidian, but his manner reminded Marcus of every frustrated professor he had ever encountered. The Void Devourers first appeared in the Andromeda Spiral approximately 4,000 standard cycles ago, Dr. Kethvar explained, manipulating the hologram with precise gestures. They emerged from what our sensors indicated was empty space, though our current theories suggest they originate from a parallel dimension where entropy has achieved total victory. Marcus studied the display, watching the slow but relentless spread of darkness across star systems. They don't seem random in their movement. Is there a pattern? We have identified several consistent behaviors. They appear to target high-energy systems first. Stars with multiple inhabited worlds, systems with advanced technology, areas with significant gravitational anomalies. They're eating the universe's power sources, Marcus realized, like a virus going after the host's immune system first. Dr. Kethvar's large black eyes widened. We had not considered that biological metaphor, but it is surprisingly accurate. What happens to the consumed areas? Do they leave anything behind? Nothing. Absolute vacuum. Not even quantum fluctuations remain. The scientist's voice carried a tremor of fear that transcended species barriers. It is as if reality itself is deleted. Marcus spent the next several hours reviewing everything the Zephyrian Empire had learned about the Void Devourers. The data was both comprehensive and deeply disturbing. Every military engagement had resulted in total defeat. Every attempt at communication had failed. Every evacuation effort had only delayed the inevitable. Have you tried studying them up close? Marcus asked. Impossible. Any probe or vessel that approaches within scanning range is immediately consumed. We believe they exist partially outside normal space-time, which makes conventional sensors useless. What about indirect observation? Gravitational effects, radiation signatures, impact on surrounding space. Dr. Kethvar paused his presentation. You think like a scientist, Marcus Chun. Yes, we have such data, though it has proven difficult to interpret. The new displays showed readings that made Marcus's head hurt. Energy signatures that spiked into impossible ranges before dropping to absolute zero. Gravitational anomalies that seemed to violate basic physics. Radiation patterns that appeared to exist in more than 4 dimensions. This is going to sound like a stupid question, Marcus said, but have you tried not fighting them? Not fighting them. Dr. Kethvar's translator struggled with the concept. I mean, what if you just let them pass? See what they do when there's nothing to consume. They would consume empty space as well. They appear to feed on the fundamental structure of reality itself. Marcus nodded, filing that information away. And you said they can't be communicated with? Correct. They do not respond to any known form of communication. Radio, quantum entanglement, psionic contact, mathematical broadcasts, cultural artifacts. Nothing produces any reaction. What about their origin point? Have you traced back to where they first appeared? The epicenter appears to be in what was once the Viridian cluster in Andromeda. However, that entire region has been consumed. There is literally nothing there to investigate. Marcus stood up and walked around the holographic display, looking at it from different angles. His experience debugging complex software systems had taught him that sometimes the solution wasn't in the code itself, but in understanding the underlying system architecture. Dr. Kethvar, do you have any data on what existed in the Viridian cluster before the Void Devourers appeared? Historical records indicate it was the heart of the Etherian Confederation, one of Andromeda's most advanced civilizations. They had achieved remarkable breakthroughs in dimensional manipulation and energy extraction. Something clicked in Marcus's mind. Dimensional manipulation? Yes, they had developed technology to access and harvest energy from parallel dimensions. It was considered the pinnacle of scientific achievement. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. And then, suddenly, entities from a parallel dimension started consuming reality. The connection seemed obvious to him, but Dr. Kethvar appeared puzzled. You believe there's a connection? In my line of work, when someone starts messing with system architecture they don't fully understand, and then everything crashes, the first thing you look for is what they broke. You think the Etherians caused this? I think they might have accidentally opened a door they couldn't close. Dr. Kethvar's obsidian skin actually paled to a dark gray. If that is true, then somewhere in what's left of their research, there might be information about how that door was opened. And if we understand how it was opened, we might be able to close it. The scientist's excitement was palpable. But the Viridian cluster is gone. Consumed completely. Are you sure? Marcus asked. In software, we have something called backups. Data stored in remote locations, archive copies, redundant systems. Did the Etherians have anything like that? Dr. Kethvar was already manipulating the holographic controls. Research archives, colonial databases, diplomatic records stored on neutral worlds. His movements became faster, more urgent. Yes, there are 17 known archive sites containing Etherian scientific data. Are any of them still accessible? 3 remain unconsumed, though 2 are in systems that will be reached by the Void Devourers within the next 20 cycles. Marcus felt the familiar rush of finding a potential solution to an impossible problem. Then, we need to get there fast. The archive sites are heavily protected. The Etherians were paranoid about their research being stolen. It would take our best codebreakers decades to access the dimensional manipulation files. Or, Marcus said with a grin, You could bring along someone who breaks into protected systems for a living. That afternoon, Marcus found himself back in the throne room, presenting his preliminary findings to Queen Vexalia. The alien monarch listened with intense focus as he outlined his theory about the Void Devourer's origin. "You believe this crisis was caused by scientific hubris rather than malevolent intent?" she asked. "The best explanation for what we're seeing is an experiment gone catastrophically wrong. The Etherians were playing with forces they didn't understand and accidentally broke reality. And you believe the solution lies in their archived research? It's our best shot. If they created the problem, they might have also discovered how to fix it. Or at least, their research might give us clues about the underlying mechanism." Queen Vexalia was quiet for a long moment. Her four arms moving in what Marcus had learned was a gesture of deep contemplation. "There are risks to this approach," she said finally. "The archive sites are in contested space. Some are controlled by hostile factions who view the Zephyrian Empire as an enemy. Others are protected by automated defense systems that have been programmed to kill any intruders. But you're willing to try it? Human Marcus Chun, in the past 24 hours you have provided more actionable intelligence about the Void Devourers than our entire scientific establishment has discovered in 4,000 cycles." The queen stood, her imposing figure casting shadows that seemed to move independently. "I'm not merely willing to try your approach. I am ordering a full expedition. How long will it take to get there? With our fastest ships and dimensional fold technology, approximately 7 cycles to reach the nearest archive site." Marcus did some quick math. "That's about 14 Earth days. We'll still have plenty of time before they reach inhabited systems. Assuming we can access the archives quickly and that they contain useful information." "One step at a time," Marcus said. "In software debugging, you follow the evidence until you find a root cause. Then, you figure out how to patch it." Queen Vexalia's expression might have been amusement. "You speak of repairing reality as if it were a malfunctioning program." "Maybe that's exactly what it is," Marcus replied. "Maybe the universe runs on rules that can be hacked, just like any other system." The queen's laugh was like distant thunder. "I begin to understand why your species has survived so many impossible situations. Because we're too stubborn to accept that something can't be fixed. Because you see problems where others see insurmountable forces of nature." That evening, as Marcus prepared for what would likely be the most dangerous journey of his life, he received a message on the alien communication device he had been given. It was from Dr. Kethvar. "Marcus Chun, I've been thinking about your biological metaphor for the Void Devourers. If they're indeed like a virus, then perhaps the solution is not to fight them directly, but to develop an immune response. I look forward to discussing this further during our journey." Marcus smiled as he looked out the viewport at the stars streaming past. For the first time since his abduction, he felt genuinely optimistic. He was about to embark on a treasure hunt across the galaxy, searching for the cosmic equivalent of source code that might save the universe. It was, he had to admit, a lot more exciting than debugging inventory management software. The Zephyrian expedition fleet consisted of 3 ships that defied every law of physics Marcus thought he understood. The flagship, Eternal Dominion, was the size of a small city and moved through space by folding dimensions around itself. The escort vessels, Stormcaller and Void Hunter, were sleeker and deadlier, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching their destination grow larger on the main viewing screen. Archive Site Epsilon 7 was located on a dead world orbiting a dying star in what had once been Etherian space. The planet's surface was covered in massive geometric structures that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. "The automated defenses are more active than our intelligence suggested," reported Commander Zvyeksa, the expedition's military leader. She was even more imposing than Queen Vexalia, with cybernetic implants covering half her body and an aura of barely contained violence. "We're detecting energy signatures consistent with dimensional mines, quantum barriers, and what appears to be weaponized gravity." "Weaponized gravity?" Marcus asked. "Imagine a weapon that can increase local gravitational force by a factor of 10,000. Anything caught in its field would be compressed to the size of a marble," Dr. Kethvar explained helpfully. Marcus felt his stomach lurch. "Okay, so we can't just walk up and knock on the door." The Etherians were paranoid about protecting their research, Commander Zwiak continued. These defense systems were designed to stop entire invasion fleets. But they weren't designed to stop someone from the inside, Marcus realized. What if we don't try to break in? What if we convince the system that we're supposed to be there? Dr. Kethvar's obsidian features showed confusion. The Etherian civilization has been extinct for 4,000 cycles. But their computers might still be running. In my experience, automated systems often outlast the people who built them. Marcus turned to the bridge crew. Do we have any information about Etherian identification protocols? Limited data, Commander ZYX admitted. We know they used a combination of genetic markers, quantum resonance signatures, and dimensional encryption for high-security access. What about their research personnel? Did any Etherians escape the initial Void Devourer attack? Some refugees reached neutral worlds, but they died out centuries ago. However, Dr. Kethvar's eyes widened. The Zephyrian Empire absorbed several Etherian colony worlds during our expansion. There may be descendants, individuals with trace Etherian genetics. Commander Zwiak was already working at her control station, cross-referencing genetic databases now. Found 12 potential candidates within the fleet. Perfect. What about the other requirements? Quantum resonance signatures. Those could be artificially generated, Dr. Kethvar said, his excitement growing. But dimensional encryption, that would require understanding Etherian mathematics at a fundamental level. Marcus grinned. Good thing we brought their entire research archive with us. Well, what's left of it? The next 6 hours were spent in frantic preparation. The fleet's geneticists worked to identify crew members with the strongest Etherian genetic markers. Dr. Kethvar and his team attempted to decode fragments of Etherian mathematical notation. The engineering core jury-rigged equipment to generate the necessary quantum signatures. Marcus found himself working alongside beings whose intelligence and capabilities far exceeded his own, yet somehow he kept finding connections they had missed. It was like debugging code written in an alien programming language, but the fundamental logic underneath was still recognizable. The dimensional encryption isn't just security, he told Dr. Kethvar as they pored over translated Etherian documents. It's also a filing system. Look at these patterns. The Zephyrian scientists studied the holographic displays. You're correct. The encryption keys correspond to research categories. Dimensional manipulation, energy extraction, theoretical physics. And here, Marcus pointed to a particularly complex sequence. This has to be the master archive access. The skeleton key that opens everything. How can you be certain? Because it's hidden in plain sight, but accessible from multiple entry points. Classic system administration. You need a backdoor that only the senior researchers know about, but it has to be discoverable by authorized personnel who might not have been told about it directly. Dr. Kethvar stared at him. You understand Etherian system architecture better than scholars who have studied it for decades. I understand lazy programmers, Marcus corrected, and every programmer in the universe is lazy in exactly the same ways. The landing party was intentionally small. Marcus, Dr. Kethvar, Commander Zwiak, and 3 specialists with the strongest Etherian genetic markers. They took a shuttle designed to avoid detection by the planet's defense systems, following a carefully calculated approach vector that took advantage of gravitational shadows and sensor blind spots. The surface of Archive Site Epsilon 7 was even more disturbing up close. The geometric structures weren't quite stable, existing in a constant state of dimensional flux that made them difficult to focus on. The air was breathable, but carried an odd metallic taste that reminded Marcus of ozone and copper pennies. The main archive entrance should be approximately 2 kilometers northeast, Dr. Kethvar reported, consulting his instruments. They made their way across the shifting landscape, past monuments, to a dead civilization that seemed to whisper in languages that had been forgotten before humanity had invented written communication. Marcus tried not to think about what might be buried in this place, what knowledge had died with the Etherians. The archive entrance was a massive crystalline structure that rose from the ground like a frozen explosion. As they approached, the surface began to glow with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. Identity verification protocols activating, announced a voice that seemed to come from the crystal itself, speaking in perfectly translated Standard Galactic. How was it doing that? Marcus whispered. Quantum translation matrix, Dr. Kethvar whispered back. It's reading our brain patterns and adjusting its output to match our language centers. State genetic heritage, the archive demanded. Specialist Veltor stepped forward. She was one of the genetic descendants, though her Etherian ancestry was diluted by thousands of years of interbreeding. Etherian Colony 77 Alpha Research Division. Genetic markers confirmed. State quantum resonance signature. Dr. Kethvar activated the device they had constructed, filling the air with harmonics that made Marcus's teeth ache. Quantum signature confirmed. State dimensional access key. This was the moment of truth. Marcus stepped forward and began reciting the sequence of mathematical relationships he had decoded from the archive fragments. The numbers felt strange in his mouth, as if he was speaking in a language that wasn't meant for human vocal cords. The crystal was silent for a long moment. Then, access key confirmed. Welcome to Archive Site Epsilon 7. Please state research inquiry. We need information about dimensional manipulation experiments conducted in the Viridian Cluster, specifically Project Event Horizon. Marcus had found references to Project Event Horizon buried deep in the translated documents. It appeared to be the Etherians' most ambitious attempt at accessing parallel dimensions for energy extraction. Warning: Project Event Horizon data is classified at Omega-level security. Access requires authorization from Research Director or higher authority. Research Director authorization, Marcus said quickly, hoping his interpretation of the bureaucratic structure was correct. Research Director status confirmed through quantum resonance analysis. Accessing Project Event Horizon archives. The crystal structure began to reshape itself, creating an entrance large enough for the landing party to pass through. Inside, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with floating holographic displays showing incredibly complex mathematical equations, dimensional schematics, and what appeared to be footage of experimental procedures. This is it, Dr. Kethvar breathed. The complete research archive for their dimensional manipulation project. Marcus walked among the displays, looking for anything that resembled an error report, a warning log, or documentation about unexpected results. What he found was both better and worse than he had hoped. Dr. Kethvar, look at this. He gestured to a display showing experimental timeline data. They didn't accidentally open a door to a hostile dimension. What do you mean? They opened a door to a dead dimension. Look at these energy readings. The parallel universe they accessed wasn't populated by void devourers. It was populated by the remnants of a universe that had already been consumed. The implications hit both of them simultaneously. Dr. Kethvar's skin went pale gray. They didn't create the void devourers. They provided them with a way to reach our reality. And based on these logs, they realized their mistake pretty quickly. Marcus pointed to increasingly desperate research notes. They tried to close the dimensional gateway, but by then, it was too late. The void devourers had already established a foothold in our universe. Marcus continued reading, his excitement growing despite the cosmic horror of the situation. But they didn't give up. Look at this final research log. They were working on a solution right up until the end. The last entry in the Project Event Horizon archives was a desperate message from Research Director Ethvan himself. The gateway cannot be closed by conventional means. The void entities maintain the connection through their mere presence in our reality. However, theoretical calculations suggest a possibility. If the original gateway could be re-established and properly calibrated, it might be possible to reverse the dimensional flow, essentially pulling the entities back into their dead universe. But that would require returning to the exact point where the gateway was first opened, Dr. Kethvar realized, which is now in the middle of a region completely consumed by void devourers. Marcus grinned, and Dr. Kethvar recognized the expression he had learned to associate with human ingenuity about to tackle the impossible. Dr. Kethvar, Marcus said, how do you feel about building a cosmic mousetrap? The journey back to Queen Vexalia's flagship took 14 hours, but Marcus spent every minute of it studying the recovered Etherian data. By the time they docked with the Eternal Dominion, he had what he believed was a workable plan. Whether anyone else would consider it anything other than elaborate suicide remained to be seen. The War Council convened in the Queen's private strategy chamber, a room where the walls themselves seemed to be made of crystallized space-time. Present were Queen Vexalia, Commander Zuyx the Dr. Kethvar, and the Empire's top physicists, engineers, and military strategists. Marcus stood at the center, surrounded by beings whose combined knowledge could have rebuilt entire civilizations. The good news, Marcus began, is that we know exactly what caused the Void Devourer crisis, and we have a theoretical solution. And the bad news? Queen Vexalia asked. The solution requires us to fly directly into the heart of consumed space, rebuild a dimensional gateway that was destroyed 4,000 years ago, and essentially perform cosmic surgery on the fabric of reality itself, while being attacked by entities that erase anything they touch. The silence in the room was profound. Finally, Chief Engineer Mordak spoke up. His species communicated primarily through color changes in his translucent skin, but his implanted translator conveyed his skepticism perfectly. Human Marcus, with respect, what you are describing is not merely impossible. It is conceptually impossible. The Viridian cluster no longer exists. There is nothing there to build upon. That's where you're wrong, Marcus said, activating the holographic display he had prepared. There is something there. The Void Devourers themselves. The display showed his analysis of the consumption pattern data. Look at how they move. They don't spread randomly. They maintain a connection to their point of entry into our universe. It's like they're tethered to the original gateway. Dr. Kethvar's eyes widened. You're suggesting that the dimensional breach still exists. I'm suggesting that the Void Devourers are the dimensional breach. They've turned themselves into a living gateway between universes. Strategic advisor Nelthara, whose species was renowned for their analytical capabilities, leaned forward. Even if this is true, how does it help us? We still cannot approach them without being consumed. We don't approach them, Marcus said. We make them approach us. He manipulated the holographic display to show a new tactical configuration. According to the Etherian research, Void Devourers are attracted to high-energy systems. They consume them first because they represent the most significant sources of dimensional stability. You want to use bait? Commander Zuyx realized. Not just bait. The biggest, most irresistible energy source in the galaxy. Marcus grinned. We're going to build a dimensional amplifier that will look like the most delicious target the Void Devourers have ever seen. Queen Vexalia stood, her four arms moving in what Marcus had learned was a gesture of intense interest. Explain. The amplifier will be designed to create massive dimensional distortions, far exceeding anything the Void Devourers have encountered before. They'll be drawn to it like moths to a flame. But here's the crucial part. The amplifier won't actually be generating stable energy. It will be generating an inverse dimensional field, Dr. Kethvar finished, understanding dawning in his dark eyes. A field designed to destabilize their connection to our universe. Exactly. When they try to consume the amplifier, they'll instead be pulled back through the dimensional gateway they've been keeping open. Chief Engineer Mordak's skin flickered through several colors that the translator rendered as profound confusion. The power requirements for such a device would exceed the output of entire star systems, which is why we're not going to build just one amplifier, Marcus said. We're going to build a network of them, positioned at strategic points around the galaxy. Each one will be linked to the others through quantum entanglement, allowing us to pool their energy output. A galaxy-spanning dimensional manipulation array, strategic advisor Nelthara said slowly. The logistics alone would require the resources of a dozen empires. Queen Vexalia's laugh was like distant thunder. Fortunately, we have been conquering other empires for thousands of years. Commander Zuyx, compile a list of every major civilization within 50,000 light years. We're going to need their help. Your Majesty, the commander said carefully. Many of these civilizations consider us enemies. Then, we'll have to convince them that the universe ending is a bigger problem than their territorial disputes. The next several days were a whirlwind of activity that spanned multiple star systems. Marcus found himself at the center of the largest diplomatic and engineering effort in galactic history. Queen Vexalia personally negotiated with leaders of civilizations that had been at war with the Zephyrian Empire for millennia, offering technology shares, territorial concessions, and mutual defense pacts in exchange for resources and cooperation. The response was mixed. Some civilizations immediately understood the threat and pledged their full support, Others demanded proof, which Dr. Kethvar provided through carefully controlled demonstrations of Etherian dimensional manipulation technology. A few refused to believe the crisis was real and had to be shown long-range sensor data of the Void Devourer's advance. The crystalline hegemony provided rare minerals necessary for dimensional field generation. The Silicon Collective offered their advanced computational resources for calculating field harmonics. The Aquatic Federation contributed their expertise in large-scale engineering projects. Even the normally isolationist ghost ships emerged from their hidden dimension to provide intelligence on parallel universe physics. Marcus worked 18-hour days coordinating between engineering teams that didn't share common mathematical notation, translation protocols, or sometimes even compatible physics. It was like trying to manage a software project where half the programmers existed in different dimensions and the other half communicated through interpretive dance. The primary amplifier construction is proceeding ahead of schedule, Dr. Kethvar reported during one of their daily briefings. The hegemony's crystal matrices are exceeding all performance expectations. What about the network synchronization protocols? Marcus asked. More challenging. Each civilization has different approaches to quantum entanglement, and their systems are not naturally compatible. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building behind his eyes. We need a universal interface protocol, something that can translate between different quantum architectures. That would require understanding the fundamental mathematical relationships underlying all known approaches to dimensional manipulation, Dr. Kethvar said. Which we have, Marcus realized. The Etherian archives contain their analysis of 17 different species dimensional technologies. They were trying to create a unified field theory. You're suggesting we complete research that an entire civilization failed to finish. I'm suggesting we don't need to understand the theory. Just implement their interface specifications. Marcus pulled up the relevant archive data. Look, they already did most of the work. They just never had a reason to build hardware that could actually implement it. The interface protocol took another week to design and test, but it worked better than anyone had dared hope. The network of dimensional amplifiers could now operate as a single, coordinated system spanning hundreds of star systems. Phase 1 deployment is complete, Commander Zwiexter announced. We have 47 operational amplifiers positioned along the Void Devourer's projected approach vectors. Energy output projections? Marcus asked. Combined power rating equivalent to the total energy output of approximately 200 stars. Chief Engineer Mordak reported, his skin flickering through colors that suggested amazement and terror in equal measure. Will it be enough? According to theoretical calculations, yes. According to practical experience, Dr. Kethvar shrugged in the universal gesture of uncertainty. Queen Vexalia activated the main display, showing the current position of the Void Devourer front. They had consumed another 14 star systems in the past week, and were now less than 30 days from reaching the first inhabited worlds. The amplifier network is ready, she announced. All participating civilizations have confirmed their readiness to begin the operation. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. Someone needs to manually calibrate the primary amplifier when the Void Devourers make contact. The interface protocols are complex, and if the field harmonics drift out of alignment by even a few decimal places, the entire network will fail. Automated systems can handle field calibration. Chief Engineer Mordak protested. Not for something this complex. And definitely not when the equipment is being attacked by reality-consuming entities. Marcus looked around the room at the assembled leaders of the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. Someone has to be there, in person, to make real-time adjustments. The implication was clear. Whoever performed the manual calibration would be at the center of the most dangerous place in the universe when the plan was executed. I'll do it, Marcus said. Absolutely not. Queen Vexalia replied immediately. You are too valuable to risk. If the plan fails, we need you alive to develop alternatives. The plan won't work without manual calibration, and I'm the only one who understands the interface protocols well enough to do it under combat conditions. Then, we'll train someone else. There isn't time. The Queen's forearms moved in a gesture Marcus had learned indicated deep frustration. Human Marcus Chun, you are asking me to send the only being in the universe who might be able to save reality into certain death. I'm asking you to trust that humans are really, really good at surviving impossible situations." For a long moment, the only sound in the chamber was the subtle hum of alien technology. Finally, Queen Vexalia spoke. "Very well, but you'll not go alone. You will have the best protection the combined fleets of the galaxy can provide." Marcus nodded. "Fair enough. How long until we're in position?" 62 hours, Commander ZYX reported. "Then, I guess we better make sure everything works perfectly." As the War Council dispersed to handle final preparations, Marcus remained behind, staring at the holographic display showing the approaching darkness. In 62 hours, he would either save the universe or become part of the void that consumed it. He thought about his quiet life in Cleveland, his routine job debugging software, his small apartment with its dying houseplants. All of that seemed like it had happened to someone else in a different lifetime. But then again, debugging cosmic scale problems wasn't really all that different from fixing broken code. You identified the error, traced it back to its source, and implemented a patch. The only difference was that if this patch failed, everything would cease to exist. Marcus found himself smiling. In a weird way, it was the ultimate programming challenge. The primary dimensional amplifier hung in space like a metallic flower the size of a small moon. Its crystalline petals rotated slowly, creating rainbow patterns that hurt to look at directly. Around it, the combined fleets of 17 civilizations maintained a defensive perimeter that represented the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Marcus stood on the command deck of the specially modified vessel Reality's Edge, watching the final preparations through reinforced viewports. The ship had been designed specifically for this mission, incorporating the best defensive technology every participating civilization could provide. It would need every advantage because it would be staying at the amplifier right up until the moment the Void Devourers arrived. "All network nodes report ready status," announced Dr. Kethvar from his position at the primary control station. "Quantum entanglement links stable across all 47 amplifiers." "Fleet positions?" Marcus asked. "Defensive formations deployed according to plan," Commander Zwax replied. "Though I must note that conventional weapons will be useless against the Void Devourers themselves." "The fleet isn't there to fight the Void Devourers," Marcus reminded her. "They're there to protect the amplifiers from conventional threats and to buy us time if something goes wrong." "And if everything goes wrong?" Marcus didn't answer. If everything went wrong, there would be no one left to worry about it. The waiting was the worst part. Long-range sensors showed the Void Devourer front approaching steadily, consuming star system after star system in its inexorable advance toward the amplifier network. Each lost system represented billions of lives, entire civilizations reduced to absolute nothing. "Contact in 37 minutes, Dr. Kethvar reported. Marcus reviewed the calibration procedures one final time. The manual controls were intuitive enough, but performing precision adjustments while reality was being dissolved around him would test the limits of his concentration. Everything depended on maintaining perfect field harmony as the Void Devourers made contact with the primary amplifier. "Marcus," Queen Vexalia's voice came through the communication system from her flagship, positioned at the edge of the defensive perimeter. "Are you certain about this?" "As certain as anyone can be when attempting something that has never been tried before. You could evacuate now. The automated systems might be sufficient." "They might," Marcus agreed. "But probably isn't good enough when we're talking about the end of everything." "Contact in 22 minutes, Dr. Kethvar announced. Marcus could see them now on the long-range displays. The Void Devourers didn't look like ships or creatures or any recognizable form of life. They appeared as areas where space itself had been cut away, leaving holes in reality that moved with purpose and intelligence. Where they passed, stars went dark, planets ceased to exist, and the fabric of space-time itself unraveled. "They're moving faster than projected," Commander ZYX observed. "The amplifier's energy signature is drawing them more strongly than anticipated." "That's good," Marcus said, though he felt anything but confident. The stronger the attraction, the more likely they are to commit fully to attacking the primary amplifier. "Contact in 8 minutes. Marcus took his position at the manual calibration controls. Around him, the bridge crew prepared for what might be the last few minutes of their existence. Dr. Kethvar ran final diagnostics on the network interface. Commander ZIX coordinated with the fleet commanders. The engineering team monitored power levels and field stability. "They're accelerating again," Dr. Kethvar reported. "Contact in 3 minutes." Marcus could feel it now, a strange sensation like fingernails on a chalkboard that seemed to emanate from the approaching void. Reality itself was responding to their presence, becoming unstable and uncertain. "Network synchronization at optimal levels," he announced, reading the data from his displays. "All amplifiers showing green status. Contact in 60 seconds." The main view screen showed the leading edge of the Void Devourers approaching the primary amplifier. Up close, they were even more disturbing than Marcus had imagined. They weren't just holes in space. They were active negation, entities that seemed to exist specifically to unmake everything else. "Contact in 30 seconds. Marcus placed his hands on the manual controls, feeling the subtle vibrations of the dimensional fields through the interface hardware. "All stations, prepare for field activation on my mark. Contact in 10 seconds. The Void Devourer struck the primary amplifier's outer field boundary, and reality screamed. Marcus had never experienced anything like it. The sound wasn't audible, but it resonated through every atom in his body. The manual controls bucked in his hands as dimensional forces beyond comprehension met and clashed. Field stability dropping rapidly. Dr. Kethvar shouted over the chaos. "We're losing coherence across the network." Marcus fought with the controls, making minute adjustments to keep the field synchronized. It was like trying to tune a radio while riding a roller coaster during an earthquake. Come on, come on. The Void Devourers pressed deeper into the amplifier array, drawn by what appeared to be the richest energy source they had ever encountered. Marcus could see on the tactical displays that they were committing fully, pulling resources from across their entire front to consume the amplifier. "Now," Marcus shouted, "execute Phase 2. Dr. Kethvar activated the secondary protocols, and the nature of the amplifier fields reversed. Instead of generating attractive energy, they now produced the inverse dimensional gradient that would theoretically destabilize the Void Devourer's connection to normal space. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The entities continued their assault on the amplifier, their reality-consuming touch beginning to affect the outer field generators. Then something changed. The Void Devourer's attack pattern became erratic. Their smooth, purposeful movement turned into something that almost looked like confusion. The holes in reality began to fluctuate, becoming unstable. "It's working," Dr. Kethvar breathed. "The dimensional tethers are destabilizing." But the Void Devourers weren't giving up without a fight. They began to pulse, sending waves of pure negation through the amplifier array. Several outer field generators simply ceased to exist, taking portions of the primary amplifier with them. Field coherence failing, Marcus reported, struggling to maintain synchronization as components of the network were erased from existence. "I'm losing control of sectors 7 through 12. Compensating with backup generators, Dr. Kethvar replied, his hands flying over his controls. The battle between existence and void continued, reality and unreality locked in a cosmic struggle. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, manually adjusting field harmonics as the universe tore itself apart around him. Then, suddenly, everything changed. The Void Devourers stopped their assault and began to retreat. But it wasn't a tactical withdrawal. They were being pulled away from the amplifier against their will. The inverse dimensional field was working, dragging them back toward the original gateway they had never truly closed. "They're being drawn back," Commander Zyaxtha announced, wonder in her voice. "The dimensional current is reversing." Marcus watched the tactical display as Void Devourers from across the galaxy began to converge on a single point in space, the location of the original Viridian cluster. They moved reluctantly, fighting against the pull, but unable to resist the dimensional gradient. "Field strength increasing," Dr. Kethvar reported. "The more entities that are pulled into the convergence point, the stronger the effect becomes." It's a cascade reaction, Marcus realized. They're being pulled back into their own dead universe. And each one that goes through makes it easier for the next one. The process accelerated. Void Devourers that had been spreading across the galaxy for thousands of years were now racing backward, drawn inexorably toward the dimensional breach that had originally allowed them into normal space. "We did it," Commander Zyax said quietly. "We actually did it." But Marcus wasn't ready to celebrate yet. "Dr. Kethvar, what about the gateway itself? Will it close once they're all through?" According to the Etherian calculations, yes. The dimensional breach was maintained by their presence in our universe. Once they're completely withdrawn, the answer came as they watched. The last group of void devourers disappeared into the convergence point, and space itself seemed to sigh with relief. The whole, in reality, collapsed, sealing the passage between universes. Where the Viridian cluster had once been, stars began to shine again. "Impossible," Dr. Kethvar whispered. "They're returning. The consumed matter and energy is being restored as the dimensional breach heals." Marcus slumped in his chair, suddenly exhausted. The universe has a backup system. When reality gets corrupted, it restores from the last stable state. You knew this would happen. I hoped. In software development, you always keep backups. I figured reality might work the same way. Over the following hours, they watched in amazement as consumed star systems flickered back into existence. Entire civilizations that had been erased were restored, completely unaware that they had ever been gone. The universe was healing itself, repairing the damage that had been done. Queen Vexalia's ship approached the reality's edge as the crisis finally, truly ended. When she materialized on the bridge via transport beam, she looked as stunned as everyone else. "Human Marcus Chun," she said formally, "you have saved not merely our empire, but all of existence itself." Marcus stood up, swaying slightly from exhaustion and relief. "I couldn't have done it without everyone's help. This was the biggest team effort in galactic history. What will you do now? The Zephyrian Empire would be honored to have you as a permanent advisor." Marcus thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "Thank you, but I think I'd like to go home. I've got some houseplants that probably need watering." Queen Vexalia's laugh echoed through the bridge. "After saving the universe, you want to return to tending plants?" After saving the universe, tending plants sounds pretty appealing. 3 days later, Marcus found himself back in his apartment in Cleveland, standing in front of his neglected spider plant with a watering can in his hand. Everything looked exactly the same as when he had left, which made sense given that the entire crisis had technically never happened from the universe's perspective. His phone buzzed with a text message. According to the display, it was from an unknown number, but Marcus recognized the mathematical signature embedded in the seemingly random characters. It was a message from Dr. Kethvar, transmitted through a quantum communication device that had been disguised as an ordinary smartphone. "Thank you, Marcus Chun. The universe is in your debt. Also, we may need to consult with you about a small problem involving time-traveling robots from the future. Nothing urgent. Talk soon. K." Marcus deleted the message and went back to watering his plants. He had a feeling his quiet life in Cleveland might not stay quiet for very long. But for now, he was content to be just another human dealing with the simple, manageable problems of everyday existence. Besides, time-traveling robots sounded like they could wait until after he had gotten a good night's sleep and maybe some decent pizza. Even universe-saving consultants needed to maintain a proper work-life balance. The spider plant seemed to be doing well despite his absence. Marcus took that as a good sign. If he could keep a plant alive, maintaining the stability of reality should be relatively straightforward. He was still smiling when he went to bed that night, dreaming of distant stars and alien queens, but mostly just happy to be home.